So, yeah, there's two sides to this world. There is the facade, what the mainstream media and what people put forth as their face. But there's also a monster brewing in the underbelly of our society, all behind the scenes of the mainstream media, in people's persona. That's why now you see why I've differentiated and compartmentalized the facade you put in the front that gets you by in life, and then the monster brewing underneath, the beast that is controlling people exponentially. And this is why I want to see your face. This is why I want to look into your eyes. I want to see your body language, because you can't hide the monster, because you either come off very well rehearsed, hiding behind your charm, your wit, or you'll come off real and expose the monster. And the monster could be your facial features. It could be your charisma. It could be so many things. And now, or your sexuality. See? And so I remember when I was a kid, or even as a young adult, and I read about the Night Stalker, was scared out of my mind in the 1980s when the Night Stalker was stalking everybody in Southern California. And we weren't too far from that. I remember seeing some of the book collections in my mom's, or some of the books in my mom's book collection in her den. And one of them was Helter Skelter, Charles Manson. And then we hear about the Unabomber. We hear about John Wayne Gacy. We hear about Ted Bundy. And then you see the types of serial killers. They're based upon different hormones that are at the surface and are being fostered and exponentially exemplified or projected and compounded with even more of the innovation around that. So what do I mean by innovation? Well, if you already have those predisposed issues because of genetic history and of upbringing, some people can get a glimpse of the monster where they feel out of control, but they've kept that monster under wraps. They figured out how to control that monster so they don't enact the homicidal, suicidal tendencies are out there. But when all the conditions are right and you can't put a hamper on that monster, then that monster turns into someone who can't control their urges, whatever they are. And urges, it's not only sexual urges, it could be violent urges. And so now you're like, holy shit, what is going on? Yeah. And so now you're going to see society for what it is. You saw already what I posted today. Okay, about Elizabeth Smart, about raising serial killers, raising children who don't have any boundaries, parents who are bullies, violent, alcoholic, drug addicts. I mean, it's a recipe for fucking disaster. They're in the religious world, they're in the political world, they're in the scientific world. The intellectual monsters like the Unabomber, he was in college. A lot of these serial killers, these really smart serial killers like Ted Bundy, they're in your government. He was like a senator or something. They're religious leaders, people you would never suspect in your community. And they're the scientific, those that do all the different experiments, that want to play God. And so you can imagine how many experiments have been done, especially in California. That's why I got the hell out of California. That was not the place for me. If I stayed in California, I would be a monster by now. They try to paint me one as in California on the Dr. Phil show. Oh, they know. They know who the monsters they've developed and created. Like again, Elizabeth Smart, San Diego. Dad's a religious dude. Okay, no discernment for people, and so he brought in the riffraff. He brought in the demon that then caused so much stuff in his family, and now he is changed sexuality, and okay, more power to him. But you see what happens. Love can turn into homicidal mania. Love can also be the monster. And so now the JJ world has taken a drastic fucking turn. Before I was caught up in the spells of good looks, the charismatics, the intellectuals, but even the intellectuals, the charismatics, the good looks, even the violent people, their monsters are being shown. And now if I want to see a next level innovation out of you guys, I got to see your face. We got to see your body language. We got to see your we got to see everything. Not everything, but you know what I mean. Because our gut, when we see somebody's face on camera that isn't filtered or you're not well rehearsed, we'll see parts of the monster come out if you allow it, if you don't try to stuff it back in. And we'll see the facade, what made you survive in this world. Let me tell you, that's what goes on. Because again, we have the facade that people put up, everything that people bought from you, the personality. And now I want to see that facade drop. Now I know some of you are witty. You have a unique look about you. You have your college education, but you also have the curiosity to see if you could introduce yourself to the world and say, hi, I'm this person, that person. I am on this journey of the JJ world, and this is my face. I am a siren. I use my looks. I use my charm, my wit as a way to get by in this world. But there's a monster underneath that's brewing, and this is where the monster came from. And you can loosely talk about it, but sometimes you can't talk about something because it might be something that's going to embarrass the family. I get that too. That's when friends and family and work people will keep you trapped into keeping silent so the monster doesn't get exposed. That's what I'm saying when you have friends and family. And so it's going to take, first, biologically, you get through your issues before you then actually talk about the root of the monster. And so when we talk about your biological issues that are going on, like your lupus, your systemic lupus, your fibromyalgia, your drug addiction, your alcoholic addiction, and not saying that Jillian just saved you and reversed all that. No, it's still in there, but you're going through that, but that is the affliction that you're dealing with. But that's not the root cause of your issues. You will deal with that later on when the time is right. But it's a progressive layer by layer by layer of peeling back. And the first step is to deal with your biological issues and to be open about that. And if that causes your image to be tarnished, then this is not meant for you. Okay? You will deal with your own shit by yourself if you even get the innovation out of this. Because we have to expose the monsters in our society. And some people will be brave enough to expose their monster. You've seen the monster come out of me. You've seen it in my face. Before I was getting sick, I was getting bloated. You saw me angry as hell a couple years ago. You saw me get really vindictive when people were messing with me. You saw the vindictiveness that came across, especially around the court stuff. You saw I can be capable of using the law and using whatever I could. And I'm not fearful of anyone. Okay? I don't need to be. People are going to be people, whatever, and we do the best we can to protect ourselves. But you can see how the monster can manifest when triggered. Now, am I going to tell you to go to that point? No, but you will give people an opportunity to see how that monster manifests in other families. We're all the fucking same. That song, Everybody Knows, by Lenny Cohen, read those lyrics. Everybody knows why you are where you are. When you're sexual, when you're intellectual, when you're violent, we know you've been hit by somebody. We know you've been sexually abused by either your parents or by a boyfriend or by an influential person in your life. We know the sexual people are like that. We know those that are hiding behind so many different facades and humor and whatever. They're dealing with trauma. Everybody knows. Okay? And so we have people that are breaking down in a kind and gentle way. You've seen those. couples that are like maybe 100 years old and they hold hands and they die in the hospital together, and everyone's like, oh, they are the quintessential old person to live up to. And then you have those that are death by police, and you have those that are serial killers, okay? And we have those who are predatory against minors and other people. And so we have so many different people who break down differently. But you can't base breaking down on that old couple that you saw on Facebook that would look so peaceful. No, there are people that are breaking down that are taking people with them in a hail of fire. And then all points in between. And then now, are you raising that kind of kid? Do you have that propensity? Okay. And are you even willing to recognize that? See, that's the thing. And so when you watch our generations from the 1930s, like the silent generation, and you watch then the baby boomers, and then you watch the Gen X, the Gen Z, the millennials, you see then the breakdown of the genetics by the personas, the proclivities, and even all of the violence and the anger. And so 1969, the love and the drugs, then translated to 1999, the rage, corn, Rage Against the Machine. That ought to tell you what happens to each generation that replicates on bodies at deficit. When you're taking antibiotics, drug addictions, and bioengineered up the yin yang, what do you think happens to each generation of cells when they reproduce? Not only cells in the body mutating, causing a lot of pain that people take more antibiotics for, but then look what happens in the generations of the population. You have cancer, disease, chronic illness, autoimmune disorders. You have homicidal maniacs, suicidal tendencies. And then it comes out in the music, comes out in the art, comes out on Netflix. And so I remember as a kid wondering, what makes a serial killer the way they are? It's not just the CIA MK Ultra. It permeates academia, politics, religion, and science. And then we're raising children who have homicidal, suicidal tendencies and all the different antidepressants. When you're taking Paxil and you're pregnant and there's so much violence going on and you're really smart, now you're going to have autistic kids with violent tendencies. Okay? You got to know how this shit works. When people are having babies and they have high-risk pregnancies, what do you think you're going to spit out? Something else for us to deal with, that we have to create an agency for, that we have to figure out another fucking cure for to make it even worse. And so I was in the middle of Silicon Valley, the only one that probably wasn't bioengineered like all my peers. Okay? I wasn't bioengineered. So yeah, I had sickness, I had behavioral issues. My mom told me, even though I got over-the-counter drugs, she says, I never drugged you. So why would she say that? Because she must have drugged somebody else. So actually she did me a service. Because those that have been bioengineered, heavily bioengineered, maybe had some intellectual violence go on. And so they're super smart and witty, and then they trigger an autoimmune disorder. And now they're being tortured by the antibodies, by the traumatic programming, the kinetic energy to the brain. That's why people are pot smokers out there. That's why pot is so prevalent, because of the amount of IVF and bioengineered designer babies who've been bred to be so smart and so intellectual that, yes, advanced our society, but now they are being tortured by the bioengineering as their body is breaking down. That's the age of reckoning, based on the love spells, the hormone manipulation. We are in the age of reckoning. And when you raise the frequencies, when you implement a virus and you cause a lot of stress, You're going to bring that out in people, and then we can see them for what it is, because you're forcing the monster to come out. And so what kind of monster do you hold within? That's what people are discovering, that there have been monsters brewing in the background that didn't have the energy to come out because there wasn't the atmosphere for it. That's why you have to now thank the New World Order, because people's monsters are coming out and you can see them for what they are. Okay, it also is dangerous because some people don't realize that they have monsters in their family that are brewing in the background and they kill their whole family. Look what happened to Chris Watts. Okay? Or Shanann Watts. Look what happened to the Watts family. That was brewing in the background, though. You couldn't tell. He was a regular kid that didn't say too much. Didn't have too much emotion. And so you have to thank the New World Order for bringing out the monsters in our society, because they are brewing in the background. And when you let monsters that are brewing in the background replicate and reproduce, now the train has left the station, and it already has, but now they're going to have to go and preempt everything, which means you raise the frequencies. You force those monsters out. Just like what happened in January 6th. That was a controlled situation, and it wasn't. It was kind of both. It could have gone either way, but they had enough control over it to not allow it to get that out of hand, because it could have been worse. What happened January 6th could have been worse, and you've seen the monsters it brought out in our society. Some will chalk it up to conspiracy and say, oh no, those are all actors. No, 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 honey. We have people like that in our society out there who are intolerant to everything. And so even though I left California, came to Ohio, we have our own intolerance over here. But let me tell you, it's exponential in Ohio, or in California. But then there's also population too. You know, of course, it'd be exponential in California because you have a lot more people than here in Ohio. But my husband is good old meat and potatoes dude. There's only two things that I would say that he has, that I would say would be the negative characteristics. And I told him that last night. And I know what my negative characteristics are in this relationship. And actually mine outweigh than his, because of his expectations and my expectations. He has a lot more expectation, or no, wait, I have a lot more expectation than he does. But I'm not the perfect wife. I put bleach in the colored laundry. Okay? So now one of his shirts has like bleach stains, and I'm like, fuck, I'm such a bad wife. I'm so sorry, honey. He's like, did you put bleach? I'm like, yeah, I put the cleaning rags in the laundry. Okay, so I'm not perfect. I know what my shortcomings are. I think my issue with him is that he has a hard time taking in new information, and he has a lot of hormones raging. But those are the only two characteristics that I would say would be, for me, challenging. That's it. But he's kept them under control when you think about it. Okay? So, yeah, California is brewing with a lot of serial killers. And that's why a lot of serial killers come out of California. But we have some here in Cleveland that were under the radar. Oh, it's not like Ohio doesn't have its own serial killers and people brewing under the surface. But then we also know biotech is everywhere. Designer babies are everywhere. All the holistic and allopathic remedies are everywhere. The cannabis is all over the place. Okay? And so it's going to be, I don't know, the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years until we clean up the petri dish is going to be a little chaotic, because now the monsters are rearing their ugly heads. And then you, people, need to look for the indicators, and don't trust everybody. Okay? There's some charming people out there that look beautiful, sound beautiful, charismatic. We have lonely men and women out there desperate for a mate and not realizing they're inviting the devil into their den. That's why you have to get control of your hormones, so you're not desperate for company, so you're not lonely. The lonely people are leaving themselves open for the company they're not ready to keep. And I know this is like a straight in your face. This is not fun. This is not happy, happy, joy, joy. This is Sunday of worshiping the past. And when when you worship the past, you will have the past. And the past is full of charismatics. The past is full of serial killers. The past is full of just death, destruction, despair, rising and falling of civilizations. And so, yeah, I'll be writing another book because I have plenty of material. Oh my God, I have plenty of material. I've seen stuff personally where I'm like, holy shit, now I understand. And Facebook, you are full of information. Social media is full of data on how to analyze people, their belief systems, their behaviors, their lack of discernment, lack of, I don't know. They're just spacey. People on my Facebook are just spacey. Or they're under the influence. Like, seriously, under the influence. And so when you get out from under the influence, you will see your Facebook and the people in your world for what they are. And you will see the facade, and then you'll also recognize that facade also breeds a monster that you have no idea what they're capable of. So you have to understand, people have two faces. What they put out for all the world to see and accept and buy and whatever, and the monster brewing inside that you have no idea what they went through. And then that should make you very leery on inviting strangers. Okay? Boyfriends, girlfriends, new friends, business partnerships. The fantasy is finally disappearing. We're not in Fantasyland. This is not Disneyland. There's no Prince Charming gonna fucking save you. But there is plenty of Maleficents, Ursulas, the Wicked Witch of the East, West, North, South. The monsters are now coming out. And I don't think many of you are prepared for that. Even your own monster. All right, bye.